Welcome back to another episode of Dean Unchained. I'm your host, E, aka Venom, aka Mr. Tell It Like It Is. As per usual on the show, we discuss the battles of mating from a male perspective. It's 2022. We have achieved a new milestone and we've been doing this for 2 months consistently. I can't be more proud of myself right now, honestly. And I want to thank everyone else that's been watching my videos, and also the latest video which I did. I had a couple of guests on the podcast, and I will continue to incorporate that in the podcast as we go, because I've received quite a lot of positive feedbacks. And to my detractors out there, this is not a podcast that's preaching women hate, because I've had people come at me and say any man with a microphone and a platform needs to be shut down. Okay, I invite women on my platform because I believe this sort of discourse in terms of bettering to better relationship outcomes and relationship dynamics between men and women needs to happen via communication. And these conversations about women's behavior, about men's behavior, cannot be had without or I'll say excluding that particular gender from the conversation, from the table. So it's not a thing where I find it distasteful where a bunch of guys just sit down and discuss women without their presence, okay? Or women sit down and discuss men without their presence, because you need to at least give each and every person the ability to, or each and every gender, the ability to kind of put their reasoning forward and defend themselves in terms of particular behavior they might display, etc., etc. Nonetheless, what brings us here today is the flip side of sexual revolution. I'd say no, not the flip side of sexual revolution, the flip side of free love. And you know, this term, it might sound like a hippie term, but this was the term that was used to, I'd say, to cocoon women empowerment, women's rights, feminism, sexual revolution all together. It was sort of used by the hippies to say, nah, women get to decide this and that. And I'm all for it because there's some partial truth to it, of course, mixed with 1,000 lies, as always, right? There's some partial truth to it mixed with 1,000 lies, which, of course, the whole movement, in fact, is detrimental to women in the long run. Okay. And in order for us to dissect this topic, we're going to need to kind of draw back a little bit in the 1950s, or prior to that, even in the 1800s and everything else. Women in the West were practically just birth machines. Okay, they were just birth machine, popping babies, etc., etc. And they would say in long-term marriages that did not benefit them in the slightest. Sometimes they would be abused, etc., etc. But they had to remain within these marriages because such was the norm at the time, right? There was no rights. Women couldn't get access to education. Women couldn't get access to voting. Women couldn't own property. And whenever they divorced, the babies that they popped out of their stomach, or their, you want to call it stomachs, bellies, whatever it is, the babies that they popped out, okay, they could not keep those babies. They had to go back to their mothers, and then the husband gets to keep the house and the babies. So such was the layout of the rules and the laws and regulations in place throughout that time for women in the West. Of course, we're not going to touch the other side of slavery, but we're just going to go into how did this movement get derailed? How did it get derailed? How did it go so wrong? And how did we end up with this? And what's currently going on? There's two things we need to take into account. One is that contraception and abortion was never part of the original women's movement. Okay, in the 1960s, contraception and abortion was never part of the female empowerment movement. This movement was later on derailed, not even later on, just at the start of it, right? Just at the start of it, was later on derailed by devious men who wanted to use women for, who wanted to reduce women to what I'll call ambitious sex objects. Okay, ambitious sex objects that they want to focus, their sole focus in life is career and not being pregnant and having casual sex with a multitude of partners, right? That's what they wanted to reduce that. And I know, sorry, no, what am I saying? I know. So these individuals, for example, we will look at Margaret Sanger for one, who she's the one that sort of created Planned Parenthood and everything else. But all of that, she was influenced and sponsoring there. She was influenced and sponsored by individuals such as Hugh Moore, right? And then now we have Betty Friedan, who started the whole women movement in the I think in the 1960s. I think the organization was National Organization of Women. I think that's what the name, that's what it stands for. So National Organization of Women. That movement, she started that movement in order to provide equality for women in the workplace, education, right to vote, equal opportunity, and so on and so forth, right? And I'm going to digress a little bit here. When we talk of arranged marriages, it is important to make one thing clear, that the arranged marriage needs to be based on the girl's preference. It needs to be based on the girl's preference. And the male entourage that's around that girl or that woman at the time, who's perhaps trying to help facilitate that process, they only assist in the vetting and ensuring that this particular candidate is the right candidate. Okay? Because yes, the preference is based on appearance and how funny the person is for women. That's the number one thing you hear from women when they like a person. But then the male assist her, or the males of her family assist her in essentially vetting and ensuring that other criteria and other aspects, such as financial stability, such as values, such as roots, origins, someone that's not going to derail her and abuse her. Like the male of her family essentially dig deeper than the surface of what is pleasing to the girl, but they're not dismissive of her choices. Okay, they support her in that. Arranged marriages should have been like this in an ideal utopian world. Okay, the arranged marriages should have been like that, but we all know that wasn't the case, because the case was, oh, we found this guy, he's wealthy, he's got ties to this, to this, to this. He could be a fat bloke looking all kind of funny. And this is not me fat shaming men or fat shaming anyone, but he could be displeasing to her eyes. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, he could not be so easy to look at for her, but she's been forced into that marriage due to financial reason, or to family ties, or to stop a war, etc., etc., etc. So those were some of the ancient rules that were in place there. Okay, so how did this movement get derailed to go into with the introduction of contraception and abortion? You have the likes of Betty Friedan, as we spoke of, who started the movement initially, and then she was influenced by an individual called Lawrence Ladder. Lawrence Ladder, who was all for abortion and contraceptive um, measures to introduce that in order to make that all legal, right? So that women could partake in this and everything else. And with that came the whole sexual revolution, because what happened essentially is that with the coming in of contraceptives, people were able to separate the outcomes of sex, which is pregnancy, getting pregnant, the risk of getting pregnant. They were able to separate the outcomes of sex from sex. So meaning people no longer needed to be committed or be serious about each other. Like they were like, yo, it's cool, we can have sex as long as you're on the pill. We're good, we can do that. Because now I know I'm not gonna risk it. I'm not at risk of having a baby at some point due to an accident, right? Because I'm on the pill. That was all good and nice. That was all that was all good. That was all cool. Okay. But here is the flip side to it. Here is the flip side to it. The contraception or contraceptive methods that are in place currently, or that were in place then and still to this day, right? They affect the woman's body and causes all sorts of hormone imbalances, mood swings, etc., or like I don't know. There's other things which are already related to like genital dryness and so on and so forth. You can go out there and do your own look at the side effects of everything else. But those are some of the major side effects that are caused by certain means of contraception. I'm not a doctor to go down through the entire list, but soon after, this woman realized in the 60s, this woman realized that no, because the movement was hijacked and contraception and abortion were brought in, all it did was reduce us to ambitious sex objects. And this is what the likes of I think she's called Helen Gurley or something. She was the exec producer at Cosmopolitan magazine. Right? She defined freedom, a woman achieving freedom and fulfillment through sex and ambition. So that's what women were told. And this is what were published in magazines about young, flirty, sexy women, etc., that could casually go out and sleep without risking having a baby. And what this pushed later was that the men were no longer interested in committing to women, and women realized that in the long run. And it negated so many things that women used to have access to. And just to add a side note to that, one, when I say this movement was hijacked by men, and men that have potentially devious motives, one to use women, one to reduce world population, keep the wealth, keep the poor, and keep the rich, etc., because individuals like Humo, they had an agenda. They released multiple pamphlets where they were like, "Nah, we should stop the poor from reproducing," right? So those are some of the key things that need to be taken into account here. So the actual propagandist, the people that are all in the shadow pushing the pawns here and there, they're actually not visible. And it's people like myself that bring you this information that women tend to attack, in the sense that, oh no, you're telling women not to do that. Look, we're just trying to expose it so you're well informed rather than misinformed, and you make your decisions on the wrong based on the wrong information. Okay, that's all I'm trying to do. So you're well informed and you make your decisions. You choose free love, you choose so knowingly. Um if you choose what's that called? If you choose like a stable partnership or relationship or cohabitation or girlfriend and boyfriend arrangement, you choose so knowingly rather than you thinking this is a spade when in fact it's a how do you call it? It's a diamond, right? So you thinking this is a spade when in fact it's a diamond, right? So it's just us putting the right. It's just me putting the right information out there, so you're able to evaluate your decisions carefully when doing them. So these individuals hijacked the movement, the movement of equality, equal opportunity, and access to education, voting, etc., for women. Now, the men benefited from this because what? Women before were able to say, no, I don't want to engage in this particular behavior. Even if she had zero moral compass or zero values, whatever it is, even if she was a maximum liberal, she would say, no, I don't want to engage in this particular act because this act is an act that's normally there to reproduce and make babies, right? It's normally an act that's there to make babies. Yes, you can have fun in the process of doing so, but the outcome, the general, not the general outcome, because obviously it's not one shot a goal or something. You can have multiple attempts at it before you actually get pregnant. But the general outcome is that, yeah, if you have unprotected sex, you will have a baby. If the person does not have, it's not on the pill, it's not on IUD or UDI, but there's a risk of a baby coming in play there. So what these individuals had done then is that, okay, now they eliminated and cleared the women's conscience. They said, look, darling, here it is. Even if you're not on the pill, okay, let's start on the pill first. You're on the pill. That's it. What are you worried about? We can have sex. And you don't have to worry because you're not going to get the baby. You're on contraception, right? Boom. Now, even if she's not willing to do so, this is where this is where the no that women say no started to become a flexible yes for men. It became a maybe. It became a, let me see how much drinks I can make her drink in order to change that no into a yes. Let me see how much how much pillow talk or sweet talk I can give her to change that no to a yes. And this is why I'm a firm believer. I'm very, very adamant about this. And I tell ladies this: be assertive and let your no be no. Let your no be no. And let your yes be yeses. That. It's simple. And then I'll go again to my guys. This is a side note. I'll go to my guys. Okay? If she says no, it means no. If she says no, it means no. Don't try to persuade her. You're not a salesman. Okay? Don't try and look. If she says no, it means no. Don't try and persuade her. Don't try and sell something to her. Don't try to say, okay, that's a maybe. That's a no. It means no. If she says yes, it means yes. But of course, it depends on you as well, on your moral compass and your on your values, etc., etc. If you something that you want to indulge in, you indulge in it by all means. But if something you don't want to indulge in, her yes means yes. You can turn her down. It doesn't matter if she calls you a chicken, a gay, or whatever it is as an insult, because that's generally what women tend to resort to when they're being rejected, right? Just follow what's the happy medium for you. Right. So where were we? So yeah, we're talking about the contraceptive pill and how that obviously brought the yes to a yes, and that brought the no to men thinking, okay, that's a maybe or that's a yes, and I can change that. And then also, what I brought is, and I hate to say this, because there's some men out there that are very much cowards. Okay, it brought this thing called rape into the scene. It was there, it existed back then, but not as much. Okay, not as much, because people knew, okay, if I do this act, or if I grape this particular a baby might result out of it. And if a baby result out of it, and then I'm pointed out to be the grapee, or the graper, then I will have to take full responsibility and commit to my actions. Or I could even go pen if I don't want to do that. So all those things like contraception and abortions, it freed men from responsibilities. It freed men from child support. It freed men from commitment. It freed men at the detriment of women, short term and long term. Because now the men were like, nah, even if we do it and she wasn't on the pill, the baby comes through, she can abort. Oh yeah, it's legal now, babe. You need to run down to the clinic and get whatever it is. If it's bleach, they make you drink. Whatever it is they make you drink, go drink that and get rid of that, because I'm not ready right now. And these are the things that when I bring them, these are topics that are very difficult to talk about in the first place. And when they're brought up, it causes a lot of, because it's a very touchy subject, right? When they're brought up, it erupts a lot of negative feelings and feelings of deceit and etc. in women. And some people are not ready to accept this particular feelings that, oh snap, we have been lied to. I have been lied to. The Kool-Aid I was drinking wasn't Kool-Aid like that. The orange juice I was sipping on wasn't exactly orange juice. It wasn't that ocean spray I thought it was. So that's what's difficult. Okay. This in turn absolved women from responsibilities and turned them into consumerist sex objects, away from their male protection and into the world of capitalism, where they get to, obviously work for the system. So all these particular things absolve men from commitment and responsibility. And I tell women, look at the big picture. Who came up with this silly movement? Men. And these are men, because I'm a nobody. Okay, I'll gladly tell you, I'm a nobody. I have zero power. So yeah, people can go and roast me on Twitter, roast me on this. I'm cool with that. But I'm making sure you're informed on the subject prior to you're well informed on the subject rather than misinformed on the subject prior to you making your life choices. Because some of us have probably had our moms been like, nah, do you know what? Marry before you carry. And we've all been upset at that. Nah, mom, I'm trying to live my best life. I'm trying to be out here. Do you know what I mean? We've all been like, marry before you carry. And then some of us have been very like rebellious with those kind of advices we received from our parents. Obviously, our parents didn't go quite into detail as to why they were telling us that, but it is a nice advice to say, look, actually get a man to commit to you before you carry or engage in that. Because if you engage in that, what happened is you will continue to kiss a lot of frogs. And trust me, you will continue to kiss a lot of frogs. And there's plenty of men out there that will happily take a ride and experience with you. The ride of experience. You think, I'm seeking love. I'm finding love. On your quest for love, you will find nothing but lust. On your quest for love, you will find nothing but lust. Don't take everything I say just at surface level. Even the references and the names that I pull up and on certain subjects and my sources that I cite, you can go and verify these sources and these references for yourself. I'm just going to summarize now a book called Subverted: How I Helped the Sexual Revolution Hijack the Women's Movement. It was written by a woman called Sue. In Subverted, Sue documents for the first time how it all happened in her own life, in the life of an entire country. Trained at the University of Missouri School of Journalism to be an investigative journalist, Sue unwittingly betrayed her true calling and became a propagandist for sexual liberation. As a long-time freelance writer for Cosmopolitan magazine, she wrote pieces meant to soft-sell unmarried sex, contraception, and abortion as the single woman's path to personal fulfillment. She did not realize until much later that propagandists higher and cleverer than herself were influencing her thinking and her personal choices as they subverted the women's movement. The thirst for truth, integrity, and justice for women that led Sue into journalism in the first place eventually led her to find forgiveness and freedom in the place she least expected to find them. Her in-depth research, her probing analysis, and her honest self-reflection set the record straight and illuminated a way forward for others who have suffered from the unholy alliance between the women's movement and the sexual revolution. Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. That's the summary of that book.